What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today to bring you 20 players. As I always do on Saturdays, 5 players that I'm going to be starting at running back, 5 players that I'm going to be sitting at running back, and same goes for wide receivers. These are not the obvious names. Of course, you guys know to start certain players over others. These are guys that are more on the fringe, top 20 or so running backs, top 30 or so wide receivers. These are the guys I'm going to be talking about today. As always, this is a recap of the start sit videos that I do throughout the week. Some of the guys that stand out to me as great plays or not great plays. And same goes for my DFS articles as well. A lot of this kind of has some DFS implications as well. So if you guys want to use some of these players in your DFS lineups, you can definitely do that. So without further ado, we're going to hit the intro and we're going to get right into this. All right, so at running back, you guys can see the 5 names on the screen, and you'll notice there's a common theme with a lot of them, and it's because we have a lot of running back injuries this week. With Christian McCaffrey ruled out yet again, Chuba Hubbard is one of my biggest starts of the week, and I actually do have these 5 running backs in order of which I would start them. So if you guys have a flex decision that involves any of these running backs, this is the order I have them ranked right now. I'll see if you guys were wondering that is true. So in Christian McCaffrey's absence last week, Chuba Hubbard commanded an 86% share of the running back carries for the Carolina Panthers and doubled his routes from week 4 to week 5. We saw Chuba Hubbard really take over this role and play a pseudo like every down back role, not quite to the level of Christian McCaffrey in the passing game, obviously, but a guy that is definitely an every week starter if Christian McCaffrey is out of the lineup. And Christian McCaffrey being out for this game definitely lends itself to Chuba Hubbard getting, 20 opportunities, 25 opportunities potentially like he did last week. So fire him up in your lineup expecting like 20 touches from the guy. So moving on to the second guy, we have Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert actually out-carried and out-snapped Damian Williams last week. Williams, of course, now on the COVID list, not going to be playing in this game. You can expect Khalil Herbert to receive at least a lion's share of the carries and the targets, but if not a complete monopoly on the backfield altogether, he could be just a full-fledged one-week workhorse this week. And if you're in a bind at your flex decisions or whatever, you have somebody on bye week, I think he's a phenomenal start this week. I think he's inside my top 20 running backs as it currently stands right now, and I would start him over some of the guys that you see listed below him. Number 3 is Darrell Williams. Again, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on IR for the foreseeable future for the next 3 to 4 weeks or so. Another backup running back, surprise, surprise. Highest scoring game on the slate currently is the Washington and Chiefs game. 55.5 is the over-under. Darrell Williams will have to split some of the receiving work, maybe some of the early down work with a guy like Jerick McKinnon as well. But we've seen Darrell Williams more trusted even than Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the goal line and in the passing game. So there's a good chance Darrell Williams is able to carve out a 14 carry, 6 target, and a goal line touch role in this game. And that'll definitely be well worth the price that you paid for him on the waiver wire. Or if you have him in your starting lineup, he's definitely a top 24 running back on the week. So another guy that is on the fringe of my top 24 is Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams has received a lot of carries and wins for the Denver Broncos. He's received carries in the mid-teens or so every time the Broncos have won a game. With Gordon failing to practice in full participation at all this week, he was DNP on Wednesday, limited Thursday and Friday. He is coming into this game questionable with an injury. The Broncos may rely on Javonte Williams to carry the load on the ground a little bit more, and they're playing at home against the team that just had their coach resign, could be reeling, and the Broncos could take care of this one easily, and that could result in a lot of Javonte Williams carries. And also, this defense just isn't very good of the Las Vegas Raiders. So the 5th and final guy that I'm going to be starting at the running back position is a little bit more off the radar, but it's Tony Pollard. As I talked about throughout the week, I'm very bullish on this Cowboys run game, really for the rest of the year, but especially in this one. The Cowboys' commitment to the run has been very noteworthy considering we thought they were going to pass the ball quite a bit. And Pollard has seen double-digit carries in every single one of his last 4 games, and we know that he can do damage in the passing game as well, and he provides that explosive playability for like a 30-yard touchdown or something like that. So with Cooper and Lamb having tough matchups against a top 10 pass defense, shadow coverage against Jonathan Jones and JC Jackson, perhaps Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard, and Dalton Schultz are the ones that do the damage in this game. And I think Pollard and Zeke specifically can gash the bottom 10 run defense that the Patriots have. Clearly a run funnel defense. They're much better at stopping the pass than they are at stopping the run. So moving on to the sits at the running back position. So these are the guys that are outside my top 30 or so on the week. Because there is bye weeks, there's a bit more leeway with this. So you guys might have to start some of these guys if you have certain players on bye like Cordero Patterson or Mike Davis or whoever else that you might have on bye at running back. But Nyheim Hines is a guy that I don't want to start if I don't have to. Since Marlon Mack has been involved in the offense, since his usage has spiked, Hines has basically been unusable. He's recorded less than 5 touches in back-to-back games, plus this game presents a game script in favor of Jonathan Taylor, right? We know that Jonathan Taylor is going to be a popular DFS play this week. We know that he is set to see a very bad Houston Texans run defense. So I think this is a game that the Colts should win, and Jonathan Taylor being the big reason for that. And I don't see a lot of garbage time reception luck for Nyheim Hines in this game. So moving on to Melvin Gordon. I already kind of talked about it, but Melvin Gordon has thrived in the negative game scripts when the Broncos have been playing from behind, which I don't expect to be the case in this game. Plus, he is dealing with injury, as I talked about already. So I prefer Javonte Williams to Melvin Gordon if you have to make that decision. Number 3 is Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams has seen his workload kind of disappear in the last few weeks because they're using him more as a grinder, which is not valuable for fantasy. We don't want grinder running backs. We want guys that are involved on all 3 downs. And that has not been the case with Jamal Williams, especially the last 2 weeks when we've seen DeAndre Swift running 70+% of the routes and playing 70% of the snaps. We haven't seen Jamal Williams involved to the extent that he was in the first 2 games. He hasn't seen more than 2 targets since week 2. And he also enters this week not having practiced much during the course of the week because he was dealing with an illness as well as a hip injury. So we don't really know exactly what his role is going to be going into this game. It could be like an 11 for 35 type of stat line for Jamal Williams and like 1 target. So that's definitely not what you want in your lineup. Speaking of grinder backs, James Conner is also a big time sit for me this week. He's really the definition of a touchdown or bust type of running back. And I don't think he gets into the end zone against a run defense that is basically top 5 in the NFL and has been very stout on the goal line, especially. So I like Chase Edmonds. I like Kyler Murray. I like the passing game to do the damage in this game for the Cardinals. I don't think James Conner is going to be heavily involved in this game plan. Moving on to the 5th and final sit at the running back position, we have A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon was involved with more touches last week, but his snap share was still around 30%, which it's been at around all year. So I'm not chasing the production that A.J. Dillon put up a week ago. I think he's fool's gold if you decide to start him. So moving from the running back position over to the wide receiver position, you guys can see the must-start wide receivers on the screen right now. And Brandon Cooks is my must-start wide receiver 1, basically. He should be an auto start every week, but I've gotten a lot of questions about Brandon Cooks this week. So I just wanted to let you guys know that he is an auto start every week. His target share and his air yard share of the Texans offense is Devontae Adams level of the Green Bay offense. Now, of course, it's not as valuable as the Green Bay offense, but it's still very valuable to have that kind of target share and share of a team's air yards. So he's an every week starter. The clear-cut wide receiver 2 on his team, Emmanuel Sanders, is my second must-start wide receiver. He actually has run more routes than Stephon Diggs in each of the last 3 games, and he's also running way more routes than Cole Beasley, and he's been producing. So this Titans defense is giving it away to wide receivers. I expect Josh Allen and Emmanuel Sanders to do a lot of damage in this game. Maybe Stephon Diggs gets back on track as well. Unfortunately for me in my home league, I got to play against the Allen and Emmanuel Sanders stack, which is not going to probably end well for me. So moving on to the 3rd guy is Marvin Jones. Might not feel like it these last 2 games, but he's still the clear-cut alpha in this wide receiver core. Marvin Jones gets a Dolphins defense fresh off allowing an absolute fantasy bonanza to Mike Evans and Antonio Brown. I think Marvin Jones gets a get-right game here, and I think he can get back on track. Moving on to the 4th guy, Sterling Shepard is a guy that I'm willing to put in my lineups in DFS or in regular lineups. He's probably going to be highly owned in DFS, but in regular lineups, Sterling Shepard is back this week, coming off of a 2-week hamstring strain that he was dealing with, but we don't know exactly how they're going to deploy both Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard, which one they're going to use in the slot, which one they're going to use outside. But my guess is that Shepard is the guy that goes outside and Kadarius Toney stays in the slot, which will keep Sterling Shepard away from Jalen Ramsey, who plays primarily in the slot and could be on Kadarius Toney for a vast majority of this game. But this game also has the highest pace on the slate. So regardless of matchups, I think both Toney and both Sterling Shepard should be played because this game could have a lot of points in it. I expect the Rams to put up points on the other side of the ball as well. Moving on to the 5th start at wide receiver is Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is a guy that I had on the starts list last week. He definitely disappointed me, but he finally gets Tua Tagovailoa back. The usage has been great for Waddle all year in terms of his target share and things of that nature. But what we haven't seen out of Jalen Waddle is the deep downfield usage since week 1 when Tua was on the field. Waddle's only game of deep usage, I believe he went like 4 for like 65 and a touchdown in week 1, was when Tua was the quarterback. And his only touchdown of the season, in fact, came with Tua as the quarterback as well. So Jalen Waddle finally getting his old college teammate back at quarterback. I think he can do some damage against a really bad Jacksonville defense with that. So finally, the sits at wide receiver, and we can start with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was outsnapped and ran less routes than Rondale Moore for the first time this season. So in my opinion, he's just simply too volatile to put in your lineup. I know the Cardinals are projected to probably score a lot of points through the air in this game, but I would much rather play AJ Green. I would much rather play Rondell Moore than I would Christian Kirk because his usage is just not quite there where it needs to be. Number 2 is Laviska Shenault. Despite DJ Chark's absence, Laviska Shenault was still a part-time player playing about 70% of the team's routes and snap share. He's ceding work to guys like Jamal Agnew, Tavon Austin, even Dan Arnold at tight end. So Laviska Shenault, just not a guy that's overly involved in this offense. We wish he was more involved because he's a talented player, but that's just not the case right now. And it's really hurting Laviska Shenault's fantasy value. And he's a guy that I don't think you can start anytime soon until something changes. So moving on to the third guy, it's Cole Beasley. Dawson Knox has ran more routes than Cole Beasley in 3 straight games. Emmanuel Sanders, as I mentioned already, is running way more than both of these guys. The Titans have been susceptible to slot receivers, so it's possible that Cole Beasley has a decent game in this one, but he's too risky of a play for me to actually throw into my lineup in redraft league. I suppose he's probably a good showdown DFS play if you guys are going to play showdown on Monday night, but outside of that, I'm probably not going to be messing with Cole Beasley. Moving on to the fourth guy, it's Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver from the Raiders. Bryce Callahan's no joke in the slot. He's allowed only 5 receptions on 14 targets this season and only 45 yards in his coverage. So Bryce Callahan, guy that's allowing like a 35% catch rate, a 42 passer rating. This is not a guy that I want to mess with. And I know Hunter Renfrow's been solid and gotten targets in the past, but I don't expect that to be this week. I expect Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, Darren Waller, whoever else to get the targets in this game. Moving on to the fifth guy and final guy of this video, it's Darnell Mooney. People will be tempted to play Darnell Mooney because Allen Robinson has been underperforming and Darnell Mooney's seen some flash plays here and there, and it's an easy matchup against the Green Bay Packers. But Justin Fields has yet to attempt more than 20 passes since he's been the starter, and this projects to be a very slow-paced, very low-scoring game. So if you have a flex decision between Darnell Mooney and somebody else, I'd probably just go with the other person because they're likely in a much faster game script, a much more high-scoring game script. For example, if you have a flex decision between Henry Ruggs and Darnell Mooney, I'd much rather go with Henry Ruggs. He has a better matchup, and he is in a much faster game script, we presume, and probably playing from behind in the game that he's in. So that's all, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, if you guys want to let me know your biggest starts and your biggest sits in the comment section down below, comment any of your thoughts down below, answer as many questions as I can get to. Like this video if you guys enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you guys want access to our rest of season rankings, which we did have a video come out yesterday, so make sure you check that out as well. You can go to our website, thefantasystockexchange.com. You can get them one of 3 ways, and they're listed on the website there. $20, Underdog Fantasy, promo code FSE, or becoming a Patreon, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Link is in the description for that. You also get our weekly rankings and our dynasty rankings by doing that as well. Peace out, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.